Hello everyone, my name is Cosmify, and I'm gonna be honest, episode 6 is not looking good for Ragatha at all. Based on the episode 6 trailer, as well as new renders and teasers that have come out in the days leading up to the episode, the possibility of her abstracting, at least to me, now seems more real than ever. And although it's not guaranteed to happen, I really hope that I do end up being wrong about this. But today, I'm gonna explain how likely it is, or isn't, that Ragatha actually ends up abstracting. So I'm gonna go over the things that suggest she might abstract, as well as the things that suggest she might not. I'm also still sick, so sorry about that, but let's start with the trailer. I kinda talked about this in my previous video, and I somewhat challenged you guys to find a single frame in the trailer where Ragatha looked genuinely happy. The reason I did this was to prove my point that after analyzing the trailer frame by frame and scene by scene, it quickly becomes obvious that she isn't feeling like her usual self as a result of the combination of the hectic nature of the adventure, and also potentially Jax and Pomni's friendship with respect to the fact that Pomni is acting a little bit more like Jax recently. The scenes where she looks petrified, like this one, aren't really too much of a concern. This is an emotion that we've seen before on her plenty of times because of her personality and her tendency to get easily shocked when the natural order is disturbed. Classic Ragatha. But really, the expressions that concern me the most are these ones, because these are not normal faces that we see on Ragatha all the time. Anytime we've seen her before in episodes 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, she's either been happy, scared, because of Jax probably, or angry, definitely because of Jax. There hasn't really been a time where we've seen her genuinely upset or fake smiling to this degree until this trailer. And the reason this worries me, besides the obvious fact that she's just in a worse mood, is because of how the concept of abstraction itself is explained in the show and how I personally have come to understand it. So from my understanding, when you abstract, part of what comes with that process is beginning to lose your personality. For Kaufmo, his breaking point was the exit door, and Kinger explained in the pilot that the last time he had spoken with him, he was rambling about the exit. Or when Gangle almost abstracted, the comedy mask didn't work well with her, that served as her breaking point, and as episode 4 progressed, you could see her get more and more disconnected with how she was before, leading up until the scene where she quite literally would have abstracted if Pomni wasn't there at the perfect time. So that's why this is so alarming to see with Ragatha in the episode 6 trailer. Gangle's situation is also a really good example of the fact that abstraction doesn't necessarily have to be a gradual thing. Before the adventure, in that very same episode, Gangle seemed fairly normal before things went downhill for her, and her deterioration took place within just the course of a few hours. But anyway, as I also stated in my previous video, the most alarming of all the Ragatha scenes in the episode 6 trailer, hands down, is this one right here. Now, her expression only tells half the story. She's clearly upset, and I'll give my thoughts on why I think that is here in a minute, but she looks upset to a greater magnitude, like I said earlier, than what we've seen in her other scenes within the trailer. However, the main concern here, like I said, isn't necessarily her expression, it's the fact that she's alone. But I bring this up because when it comes to abstraction, it doesn't take a detective to realize that Gangle, when she was about to abstract, and Kaufmo, when he did abstract, had something in common. They were alone when it would have happened. And in Gangle's case, the appearance of Pomni seemed to disrupt Gangle's abstraction because, well, she was no longer alone. And so if Ragatha is really feeling as terrible as she looks in this scene, the possibility of Ragatha abstracting all alone like this is just drifting further into reality. Now, like I said earlier, there are things that suggest Ragatha might not abstract, but I'll go over those in a bit. But if it were to unfortunately happen, how exactly could it happen specifically? Like, what would cause it? Well, there are a couple of possibilities. It's no secret at this point in the series which characters like and dislike each other. When it comes to Ragatha and Jax's relationship, from the very beginning, going all the way back to the pilot episode almost 2 years ago now, which is insane by the way, we very quickly saw that Ragatha and Jax had hated each other from the very start, because Ragatha is a people pleaser and Jax is kind of quite literally the exact opposite of that. Basically, Jax is a big reason for her to abstract if she does. However, Jax, in my opinion, is not the only reason she feels this way right now. As you might remember from the end of episode 5, Pomni was caught between Jax's and Ragatha's attempts to be friends with her. Jax thinks that Ragatha is mistaken in trying to pretend everything is okay all the time and seems to think that Ragatha is trying to take advantage of people, although I kind of have a feeling that he was only saying that to sway Pomni more towards him, but that's a story for another day. Anyway, Ragatha meanwhile was trying to convince Pomni to see Jax as the jerk that she knows him to be, and to be fair, she kind of does have a point. However, by the end of episode 5, it was very apparent that Ragatha's attempts had failed and Jax had made more headway on being Pomni's friend. And if we look at the episode 6 trailer, this is very much reflected in that. As for Ragatha, there's a specific scene where it almost seems like Ragatha had asked her to be a duo, but Pomni is saying no or refusing in some way. It's not only the fact that Pomni seems to be slipping away from her, but it's also the fact that it's because of Jax of all people. She really hates Jax. That must suck for her. Now obviously, I'm not trying to paint Ragatha as a goody two-shoes, can do no wrong innocent in this scenario, and I'm also not trying to paint Pomni as the ultimate evil of all evils. This isn't really anyone's fault, it's just a bad situation overall. Jax is still annoying though. I love Jax, but she is annoying. So with the combination of Jax being annoying to Ragatha as usual throughout the adventure, and Pomni acting more like Jax and being less supportive as a result of that, maybe, it creates a sort of perfect storm for Ragatha, and she's probably not going to be getting any help elsewhere either, unless she somehow manages to catch Kinger in a dark room with some more sense to him. So with all of that in mind, that's how I believe everything is going to culminate in this scene right here, and it remains to be seen whether someone will come and help her, or if she remains alone and abstracts as a result. Gooseworks, please don't do that. Now, I was using Gangle as an example a lot earlier, but the reason I'm not targeting her now as much as Ragatha when it comes to the most likely person to abstract is for two main reasons. Number one, from a writing standpoint, it wouldn't really make a lot of sense for Gangle to be saved from abstraction by Pomni in episode 4, and then go right back and end up abstracting 2 episodes later. I just don't think Gooseworks would do that. I mean, it would be unexpected, so I'll give Gooseworks that. But number two, looking at episode 6's trailer, I feel like I've said trailer a million times, but anyway, it shows that even though Gangle did have more moments of looking sad than Ragatha did, her sadness isn't necessarily a deviation from her character like Ragatha's sadness is. Like, we've seen Gangle this sad before, that's like half of her character. We really haven't seen Ragatha that way though. Not only that, but Gangle also seems to recover somewhat as a result of Zubal's pep talk, which I also talked about in my previous video. I will say though, that one scene where she's making the cute face, I was able to kind of read her lips, and it looks like she's saying, "You tried," which that could have a lot of different meanings, so I'm just gonna leave that to you guys for now. Anyway, that's the reason why I'm focusing so much on Ragatha. As for how Ragatha's abstraction would affect the series, I definitely think that if it were to happen, it would really be classified as the worst thing Jax has done, or more accurately, indirectly contributed to. However, Pomni also has a place here in the sense that if Jax were to be the main reason for Ragatha's abstraction, Pomni would have a choice to make between defending Jax and being on his side, or turning her back on him, which could then create a whole new set of problems because now Jax has no one left for him, and I feel like even someone as cynical as Jax might be affected by that. However, with all of that said and done, I do want to remind you guys that there is some reason to believe Ragatha might not abstract. Shortly after episode 5, the ending, and specifically Ragatha being left alone, led a lot of people, including myself, to very quickly come up with theories regarding her potentially abstracting. A few days later though, Gooseworks would proceed to make a post saying, "It warms my heart seeing nobody predict episode 6 correctly," or something like that. And also, it would be kind of bad writing from Gooseworks' perspective to kill off Ragatha in such a predictable way, and even before her character arc is completed. At least in my opinion. Anyway, to wrap things up, I think Ragatha could abstract, but I honestly think Gooseworks might bring her very close and then save her in some way, or have a character save her. But anyway, that's all I have for today. My voice is literally fried. I don't know if you can tell, so I'm gonna go to sleep. Hope you enjoyed. Bye-bye.